I'm going to focus on the cannabis industry and specifically a brand that I personally actually used to work for. And so I know a lot of the costs and the revenue and how they scaled. And so we'll talk about kind of the evolution of their pricing model and their strategy to get on the shelves. Um, so they were certainly ahead of their time. So the name of the company was originally called Humboldt. And when I first started working at the company, that was their name. It was vape technology that was new and innovative, but the price they were aiming to charge was 3x the cost or price of any other product on the market. At that time. So another thing about them is that they also sold a half gram of distillate in a disposable vape battery, meaning you could only use it once. The design was sleek. The marketing was expensive and sleek. They began shifting the cannabis industry in the direction of how do you want to feel and what kind of mood you're going for. So they introduced a lot of different things to this cannabis industry, and specifically, they use positional pricing to attract a more superior demographic and a certain kind of demographic that they knew could afford their product. Um, and so that's kind of what we'll focus on today. So let's take a quick look at the cannabis industry, though. It continues to grow. So there's new pricing strategies, new markets opening up, new products being introduced almost weekly to kind of illustrate how big the industry is getting. It's expected to be, close to 62 billion by 2026. California actually demands a lot of that, and you can see in 2021, almost 24 million came from the or billion came from the U.S. So a lot. So these are some of the things that consumers care about, though, when we're evaluating a product, right? Maybe how high the THC or CBD content is, the quality of the high, the taste, the smell, the flavor, the duration, how well it smokes or vapes, and if there's any lack of negative effects. So what affects the price and the purchase, right? So low price is a huge driver of purchases, especially in today's economy. A lot of people will gravitate towards stuff that's more affordable, and then they might look at the high THC content after that, and then taste and flavor. So not much different than alcohol, right? What's the cheapest and what's going to get me the highest, right? Now, in an analysis of 10 price changes, it was consistently found that unit volume increased as price decreased. So I imagine there's a lot of cannabis financial analysts out there doing some break-even analysis to figure out if we lower our price by X amount, how many units do we need to sell to break even and not go out of business, right? And so you'll see that a lot in cannabis. Now, millennials and Gen Z, which make up a lot of the purchases, are willing to buy premium cannabis. So if you position yourself as a premium good and you stand up to that with quality, people will spend money on it. Now, we've also seen different kinds of concentrates come out. Now, Humboldt started out as a vape pen that smokes concentrate, which is cannabis oil, but other forms have come out, which are called like butter, rosin, or live resin, right? And this has certainly changed how people consume or purchase their vapes. So let's start by looking at how Humboldt actually compares maybe to other products on a menu. Here is a popular retailer in West Hollywood, California, and we'll see there's a number of other vape products on here. But what I mentioned at the beginning was that Dosist actually came in with positional pricing and a high price tag to attract a high price kind of consumer, right? But as we can see here, they're actually one of the cheaper products on here. Now you can also see that they're selling a half gram. So if this is a half gram, and this is also like a half gram, you can see that they're actually about $11 cheaper or $10 cheaper, even with the discounts that are being applied on this day, right? And you can see that across a number of other products. Now, what happened is that they did launch with the high price tag, but over time they've released different products, and we'll go over that here in a second, right? And these different products can command a higher price, but over time the consumers gotten some more sophisticated, and it's just not the taste, I guess, that everybody's looking for these days, right? As witnessed by their price kind of being lower here. Now, maybe they've actually got economies of scale, which is very possible with this company, where they're able to lower this cheaper price to compete with the market. But in the beginning, they actually were going the opposite direction. They didn't want to race to the bottom. They wanted to do the opposite of that. But it appears in this example and on some other menus I found that they're one of the less expensive options out there. Now they also have a D2C menu as well, direct to consumer. So you can purchase stuff directly from their website. And when I went to their website, their inventory is actually very limited. And it also appears that they discontinued one of the first products that they launched, which was this mini vaporizer right here to the right, right? Now, they started out with this 0.5 gram vaporizer. It was disposable. It was very unique because it would vibrate, giving you the effect of like a dose. And so a lot of people were looking, especially new consumers that might have a higher ticket price. They were actually looking for something where they could dose themselves effectively as they introduced them to cannabis, right? Now, this was a tough sell because, again, it's like $50 more retail price than what consumers were used to at that time. There's also like $30 more wholesale. So to try and get a like a retail store to buy this was also a struggle, right? Now that's part of the reason that they introduced this more affordable option. Even though it had less, it was a way to get that new consumer to think about spending the $100 on their pen with the 0.5 gram. And so this was a way to introduce and try to get people onto the brand. What ended up happening shortly after was shortly after I left the company, they actually ended up changing the branding a little bit and releasing some different form factors, right? And this was one of them, the gummies. Okay. Now, depending what's inside of a product like CBN or CBD, you can actually charge more for the product, right? And that's kind of what Dosist is doing here on the direct D2C model here, is kind of showing you why it should be that price. Okay. And just for the record, $20 is pretty standard for gummies in the cannabis industry. So no like real crazy price drop with this. Now, they ended up releasing even other new products, right? And I believe that releasing the gummies was a way to, again, get new consumers or edible consumers onto their brand and possibly buying their more expensive items, which could be these live resin things. Now, we looked at the live resin chart earlier. Lots of people are spending money on live resin. So obviously, Humboldt or Dosist had to come out with this collaboration. So they actually did a couple different collaborations to open up market share in certain states. And they also came out with the detachable cartridge, which the market is used to, as we'll see in some of the menu options there, right? So we've got about 3 minutes and 30 seconds left, and I'm going to walk you through some other options to take a look at. So they started with the high price tag, positional pricing. They released a different SKU to try and get people to level up to that pricing. They then released a different form factor to get people to consider the brand, right? And to play in another category. They then released some new cartridges and some new collaborations to get typical oil consumers onto their product, right? So if we go back real quickly to the menu, you can see a lot of these are carts. This is a disposable, but you can see carts are typically ones that you can remove and add. These are typically more popular in the industry. And for a long time, Dosist wouldn't release these, and there was constant pressure to release these as another stream of revenue. And now I'm not sure, it's really hard to kind of find sales numbers on cannabis companies right now. So I'd be curious kind of to know as well, like which ones are doing better. Are there disposable ones or their cartridges? Based on their website inventory, I'm going to guess that the cartridges are performing a lot better because, again, people want to reuse a battery, but just keep replacing the carts. So how to stay competitive, drive the cost out of operations to enable pricing, communicate product qualities to validate its price tag, right? And that's something that we see right here, talking about the different qualities of the product to try and get somebody to purchase it, talking about how the dose controller uses a lithium ion battery and it's got an intelligent microcontroller, right? These are different ways that brands can separate themselves to justify the price that they're using in the cannabis industry. But over time, we've just seen the pricing of Dosist continue to drop, I think, right? And so you can see one of their biggest competitors is a company called Stizzy. They've got different battery technology. They also subscribe to a different demographic. They're more urban, not trying to hit up like the soccer moms or soccer dads, right? And to that point, over time, even though they were less expensive, they can start to charge more. Probably, you can see the average price of a gram cartridge is 43.81 for them, which is more than what we saw on the Dosist menu, right? Now, Dosist, we could see that in one of the other graphs we looked at, one of the things people are looking for is high THC content, right? And we can see that eventually Dosist then ended up releasing high potency plus formulas, or at least this is how they were marketing it to try and get people to spend that extra money on the product, right? So it's another strategy that they used to try and get people to spend money on their products. Now they ended up coming out with other gummies as well. Nano means that they work faster than a typical cannabis edible might. They also released different feeling or states of being that they wanted people to get. This kind of targeted the female demographic, which has seen a growing increase in spending money in the cannabis industry. So that's one of the tactics they used. And then let's go ahead and just look at other options that are in here. And I'll attach this in the comments to the YouTube video. If anybody has any questions and wants to see the evolution of Dosist. Thanks.